Every day, from the moment we wake up until we go to sleep, our minds are pulled in countless directions. We are overwhelmed by tasks, distracted by notifications, and consumed by worries about the future or regrets about the past. Yet, in the middle of this storm, there is a way to find clarity, purpose, and strength. The Stoics, those ancient philosophers who lived centuries ago, discovered a path to daily success that is just as relevant today as it was in their time. They didn't just preach lofty ideas, they built practical habits, daily practices that helped them remain calm, focused, and resilient no matter what life threw at them. And these habits can change your life too. But here is the truth: when we hear the word success, we often think of achievements, career milestones, financial security, or public recognition. The Stoics defined success very differently. To them, success was living in alignment with one's values, staying unshaken by external chaos, and maintaining inner peace no matter the circumstances. This kind of success is not measured by wealth or praise but by the strength of your character and the steadiness of your mind. That is why the Stoic approach to success is not about chasing outcomes but about practicing habits that shape who you are every single day. So what does this look like in practice? It starts with understanding that your days are not just random events that happen to you. They are opportunities, moments where you can choose how to think, how to act, and how to respond. Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, once wrote in his journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. These are not just poetic words, they are instructions for living. They remind us that if we want to succeed in life, we need to take control of our inner world before anything else. This is where the first transformative Stoic habit comes into play: intentional reflection. The Stoics believed that a successful life begins with self-awareness. They took time each morning to set their intentions for the day and each evening to review their actions. This wasn't just a casual exercise, it was a disciplined practice. Imagine starting your day by reminding yourself of what truly matters, of the kind of person you want to be, and of the challenges you might face. Then imagine ending your day by honestly asking yourself, did I live according to my values? Did I let anger or fear control me? Did I treat others with kindness? This daily reflection sharpens your awareness, strengthens your discipline, and allows you to course correct before your habits lead you astray. In today's fast-paced world, we rarely take time to pause. We move from one task to another, from one distraction to the next. But what if you stop for just a few minutes at the beginning and end of each day to reflect? You would start to notice patterns in your behavior. You would identify what triggers your stress or what brings you peace. You would see where you fall short, but instead of blaming yourself, you would find ways to improve. This is not about perfection, it is about progress. Seneca, another Stoic philosopher, wrote that, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Reflection helps us reclaim our time. It prevents us from living on autopilot and reminds us that every day is an opportunity to practice virtue, to grow stronger, and to become a better version of ourselves. Think about how different your life would feel if you built this habit. Instead of rushing into your mornings, you would start with intention. Instead of falling asleep with a restless mind, you would end the day with clarity and calm. This simple practice can change the way you experience your life because it allows you to live deliberately instead of being swept away by distractions. In the next part, we will dive into the second life-changing Stoic habit, one that will teach you how to face challenges with strength and transform obstacles into opportunities for growth. But before we get there, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, if I reflected on my actions every day, what patterns would I see? What would I be proud of? What would I want to change? These are the questions that lead to real, lasting success. If intentional reflection lays the foundation for daily success, the next Stoic habit is what keeps you standing firm when life tries to knock you down. The second transformative habit is the practice of reframing challenges, training yourself to see every obstacle not as a roadblock, but as an opportunity for growth. The Stoics had a radical way of looking at problems. They believed that the world is full of events beyond our control, Yet our minds are free to interpret those events in ways that either destroy us or make us stronger. As Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This isn't just a motivational quote. It's a skill, one that you can practice every single day until it becomes second nature. Think about your own life. How often do you face situations that feel unfair or overwhelming? A colleague undermines you at work. A friend betrays your trust. You face unexpected financial stress, a health scare, or simply a day where nothing goes as planned. It's easy to spiral into anger, frustration, or self-pity in those moments. But the Stoics would ask you to pause and look deeper. They would tell you to ask, what can I learn from this? How can I grow through this? Marcus Aurelius offers some of the most practical advice here. In his Meditations, he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This isn't just philosophical poetry. It's a strategy for resilience. Instead of resenting obstacles, you embrace them as part of your path. You stop fighting reality and start using it. You begin to understand that every setback is a test, an invitation to practice the virtues you claim to value. Let's make this practical. Imagine you're dealing with a difficult coworker who constantly tests your patience. Instead of stewing in resentment, reframe it, "This is my chance to practice patience and self-control." Or consider a financial setback. Rather than viewing it as pure misfortune, ask how it can teach you resourcefulness, humility, or gratitude for what you still have. Suddenly, instead of being a passive sufferer of life's unfairness, you become an active participant in your own growth. This reframing doesn't erase pain, but it changes your relationship to it. It takes you out of the role of a victim and puts you back in control. Instead of asking, "Why me?" you begin to ask, "What can I do with this? How can I turn this pain into power?" It's a shift from being crushed by circumstances to being shaped by them. Here's a simple but powerful exercise. Each time you face a challenge, write it down in a journal. Then, next to it, write what lesson or opportunity might be hidden within it. At first, this will feel unnatural. Your mind will resist, wanting to focus on the unfairness or the pain. But with practice, you'll start to notice that even the hardest situations carry a gift, a chance to grow stronger, wiser, or more compassionate. Seneca captured this mindset beautifully when he said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." These words remind us that growth rarely comes from comfort. It comes from being stretched, tested, and sometimes even broken, only to rebuild yourself stronger than before. In our modern world, we are conditioned to avoid discomfort at all costs. We numb our pain with distractions, run from our fears, and label challenges as misfortunes. But what if you began to see those very challenges as your greatest teachers? What if every obstacle you faced became a classroom for building resilience, patience, and wisdom? Imagine approaching each day with the quiet confidence that no matter what happens, you can handle it, not because you control the outcome, but because you control your response. This is the heart of the Stoic approach to resilience. This habit, if practiced consistently, will change how you experience your entire life. Challenges stop being reasons to quit and start being invitations to rise. You become mentally unshakable because you know that no matter what life throws at you, you can adapt, learn, and grow. So, as you move through your day, start asking yourself, how can I use this challenge? How can I make this obstacle part of my growth? This practice doesn't just help you survive tough times, it helps you thrive in them. In the next part, we'll explore the third Stoic habit for daily success, a practice that will bring you lasting peace and clarity in the middle of life's chaos. But for now, reflect on this. The challenges in your life are not punishments. They are invitations. Will you accept them? If reframing challenges teaches us how to stay resilient in the storm, then the third Stoic habit takes us even deeper. It is the practice of living with deliberate purpose, aligning your actions with your core values every single day. This habit sounds simple, but it is life-changing. The Stoics understood that without a clear sense of purpose, people become like leaves blown in the wind. They are carried by circumstances, swayed by the opinions of others, and exhausted by chasing things that do not matter. But when you live with purpose, you anchor yourself. Suddenly, life's chaos does not feel so chaotic because you know what you are living for. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." These words cut straight to the heart of purposeful living. It's not about endless debate, comparing yourself to others, or waiting for the perfect conditions. It's about action. You already know, deep down, what aligns with your values: courage, kindness, wisdom, self-discipline. The challenge is to live them out, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. Ask yourself, what do I truly value? What virtues do I want my life to reflect? Is it justice? Patience? Courage? If you don't know, you will forever be pulled by distractions, advertisements, and other people's expectations. But when you clarify your values, you create a compass. You start making decisions not based on what feels good in the moment, but on what builds the life you want to live. Here's a simple yet powerful exercise. Each morning, take a few minutes to write down the kind of person you want to be today. Not what you want to achieve, but who you want to be. For example, today, I will practice patience. I will not let anger control me. I will show kindness even when it's inconvenient. This practice sets the tone for your day. It reminds you that success is not just measured in results but in the integrity of your actions. Seneca captured this idea when he wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Purposeful living is about refusing to waste your life on trivialities. It is about using your limited time for what truly matters. How much of your day is spent on things that do not serve your higher purpose, scrolling endlessly, worrying about what others think, chasing temporary pleasures? The Stoics would challenge you to cut those things away. This habit transforms how you see even the smallest actions. Suddenly, doing your work with diligence is not just about earning money, it becomes an expression of your value of discipline. Listening patiently to a loved one is not just being polite, it becomes an expression of your value of compassion. Every action, no matter how small, becomes infused with meaning when it aligns with your purpose. Think about the alternative. When we drift aimlessly, life feels empty. We constantly chase new things, hoping they will fill the void, the next promotion, the next purchase, the next thrill. But as soon as we achieve them, we feel unsatisfied again. Why? Because we are living without an anchor. But when you live with deliberate purpose, even the most ordinary day becomes extraordinary. Washing dishes becomes a practice in mindfulness. A conversation becomes an opportunity to practice empathy. Your work, no matter how humble, becomes a way to contribute meaningfully to the world. This is how the Stoics approached life. They didn't separate philosophy from daily living. They practiced it in everything they did, from ruling an empire to dealing with a noisy neighbor. For them, purpose wasn't an abstract idea. It was something you lived out in every choice, every word, every moment. Here's another exercise. At the end of your day, reflect. Ask yourself, did I live according to my values today? Where did I succeed? Where did I fall short? This nightly reflection isn't about shame or self-punishment. It's about learning. Every day becomes a chance to refine yourself, to move closer to the person you want to be. When you live with deliberate purpose, you no longer need constant motivation from external sources. You are driven from within. You become someone who acts with intention, no matter how chaotic the world around you becomes. Imagine how powerful your life could be if every action, every decision, was rooted in your deepest values. How much lighter would you feel, knowing that you are living authentically, not just surviving each day but actively shaping it? This is the third Stoic habit, living with deliberate purpose. It's about taking ownership of your life and making sure that, when the day is done, you can look back and say, I lived today with integrity. I lived as the person I want to become. If you've ever wondered why motivation seems to disappear when you need it most, the Stoics would tell you it's because motivation is like the wind. It comes and goes, impossible to predict or control. But discipline, on the other hand, is like the ground beneath your feet. It's steady. It holds you up when everything else feels uncertain. And that brings us to the fourth Stoic habit for daily success, the unwavering practice of discipline. Discipline, in the Stoic sense, is not about punishment or forcing yourself into a rigid routine. It's about aligning your actions with reason and virtue, regardless of how you feel in the moment. It's choosing to do what is right, not what is easy. This was one of the core lessons taught by Epictetus, who often reminded his students that freedom comes not from doing whatever you want but from mastering your desires. No man is free, he said, who is not master of himself. In today's world, we are told to chase motivation, that magical burst of energy that pushes us to start a new project, hit the gym, or finally tackle that difficult conversation. But how often does that motivation last? 1 week? A few days? Sometimes only a few hours. The Stoics understood this problem over 2,000 years ago. They didn't wait for inspiration to act. They built their lives on disciplined habits, knowing that true progress doesn't depend on fleeting feelings but on consistent effort. Imagine this: you wake up on a cold, gray morning. You don't feel like getting out of bed. You don't feel like exercising, working, or facing the challenges ahead. A person chasing motivation will probably stay under the covers, waiting for that spark of energy to arrive. But a person living with Stoic discipline, they get up anyway. Not because they feel like it, but because they know it's the right thing to do. Marcus Aurelius struggled with this himself. In his Meditations, he wrote about the inner battle of rising in the morning. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work, as a human being. What do I have to complain of, if I'm going to do what I was born for, the things I was brought into the world to do? These are the words of a man who understood that discipline is about living your purpose, even when it's uncomfortable. Here's a practical exercise inspired by the Stoics. Create a list of your non-negotiables. These are the actions that reflect your highest values, things you will do every day, no matter how you feel. It could be exercising for 20 minutes, journaling each evening, or spending time in gratitude. By making them non-negotiable, you strip away the mental debate. You don't ask, do I feel like doing this today? You simply do it because it's part of who you are. Discipline also means mastering your impulses. Think of how many poor decisions are made in moments of unchecked emotion, sending a hurtful message in anger, spending money on things you don't need, or wasting hours on distractions. The Stoics warned against being ruled by impulses. Seneca said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity. For he is not permitted to prove himself." In other words, discomfort is not your enemy, it's your teacher. Every time you resist a destructive impulse, you build resilience. And this practice of discipline does more than make you productive, it shapes your character. It teaches you that you can trust yourself. Every small act of discipline, finishing a task, keeping your word, resisting a temptation, reinforces the belief that you are in control of your life. And that belief is transformative. But let's be honest, discipline isn't glamorous. It's rarely exciting. And that's precisely why it's so powerful. The Stoics didn't aim for easy victories. They knew that greatness is forged in the small, often unseen choices we make every single day. They understood that the real battle for success is not out there in the world, it's within. So how do you strengthen your discipline? Start small. Pick one daily practice that aligns with your values and stick with it, no matter what. Track your progress. Reflect each evening on whether you stayed true to it. Over time, you'll notice that what once felt impossible becomes effortless. This is the quiet magic of discipline. It transforms you slowly, from the inside out. Think of it like training a muscle. At first, it feels weak. But the more you use it, the stronger it becomes. Soon, you'll find that you don't need to wait for motivation anymore. You simply act, because that's who you've become, someone who lives with purpose, someone who keeps their commitments, someone who moves forward even when it's hard. This is the Stoic way, to live not for comfort or convenience but for growth and virtue. And in doing so, to create a life that is unshakable, no matter what storms come your way. Another cornerstone habit of the Stoic path to daily success is the practice of deliberate reflection, what Marcus Aurelius called examining the soul. If discipline helps you act rightly, reflection helps you think rightly. It's the habit of stepping back from the whirlwind of daily life to look at yourself, your actions, and your thoughts with clarity and honesty. And this is something the Stoics believed was not optional, it was essential for anyone who wanted to live well. Marcus Aurelius himself modeled this practice. His Meditations, the very book that continues to inspire millions, was not written to impress others. It was his personal journal, a place where he wrestled with his doubts, reminded himself of his principles, and strengthened his character. He wrote lines like, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This wasn't philosophy for the classroom. It was medicine for his soul. In today's world, how often do we pause to reflect? Many of us wake up, rush through the day, and fall into bed exhausted, barely aware of how we spent our hours. But the Stoics invite us to slow down, to take time each morning to prepare our minds for the day ahead, and each evening to review how we lived. Seneca advised, "When the light has been taken away and my wife has fallen silent, aware of this habit of mine, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said." Why is this so powerful? Because reflection turns experience into wisdom. Without it, we simply live through our days. With it, we learn from them. When you reflect, you begin to see patterns in your behavior. You recognize where you've lived up to your values, and where you've fallen short. This gives you the insight you need to grow, not through vague intentions but through deliberate, meaningful changes. Here's a simple exercise you can try. At the end of each day, ask yourself 3 questions. First, what did I do well today? Second, where did I fail to live according to my values? And third, what can I do differently tomorrow? Write your answers down. Keep them short and honest. Over time, this habit becomes a mirror for the soul, showing you not only who you are but who you are becoming. Reflection also helps you break free from the grip of your emotions. Epictetus reminded his students, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." But how can you control your reactions if you never stop to examine them? When you reflect, you create space between stimulus and response. You catch yourself before anger turns to rage, before fear paralyzes you, before sadness consumes you. You remind yourself that emotions are signals, not commands. But there's another layer to this habit. Reflection is not only about correcting mistakes. It's also about gratitude. The Stoics, often misunderstood as cold or unfeeling, were deeply grateful people. Marcus wrote frequently about appreciating the gift of life, even in its struggles. When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. By reflecting on what you're thankful for, you reframe your entire experience. You shift from seeing life as a burden to seeing it as a blessing. Imagine the impact this can have on your success. Instead of being swept away by every setback, you pause and ask, "What can I learn here?" Instead of chasing external achievements blindly, you stop to consider, "Are these goals aligned with my values?" Instead of ending the day in mindless distraction, you spend a few quiet moments in honest dialogue with yourself. These small acts of reflection compound over time, leading to greater clarity, resilience, and purpose. It may seem like a simple practice, but don't underestimate its power. In a world obsessed with constant noise, reflection is an act of rebellion. It's choosing to tune out the distractions so you can tune in to what truly matters. If you've never done this before, start small. Set aside 5 minutes tonight. Turn off your phone. Sit in silence. Ask yourself, did I live today as the person I want to be? If the answer is no, don't despair. Tomorrow is another opportunity. This is what the Stoics teach us. Life is a continuous journey of growth. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing to look honestly at yourself and keep moving forward. This habit, like all Stoic practices, is not about theory. It's about transformation. The more you reflect, the more you discover that wisdom is not out there waiting for you to find it. It's within you, waiting for you to listen. Another powerful Stoic habit for daily success is intentional simplicity, the art of living with focus, purpose, and freedom from unnecessary complexity. In our modern world, we are surrounded by constant noise, endless choices, and an overwhelming amount of information. Every day we are pulled in 100 different directions, and often, without even realizing it, we allow trivial things to consume our energy and attention. The Stoics understood this problem long before the rise of smartphones or social media. They taught that a cluttered mind cannot produce a calm life, and a person chasing too many desires will never truly find peace. Marcus Aurelius wrote often about this. In his private meditations, he reminded himself to do only what is essential, to focus on the duties of the present moment, and to disregard the distractions of unnecessary desires. He said, "If you seek tranquility, do less. Or more accurately, do what's essential." Which brings a double satisfaction, doing fewer things better. This simple but profound statement shows us that happiness and success do not come from doing more, but from doing the right things with our full attention. Consider how this applies to your daily life. How often do you fill your day with tasks that do not truly matter? How much time is lost on meaningless scrolling, gossip, or chasing the approval of others? The Stoics invite us to strip away the unnecessary. Seneca warned about this when he wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." His words are a wake-up call. If you want to succeed and live with purpose, you must reclaim your time from the trivial and invest it in what really matters. But simplicity is not only about decluttering your schedule. It is also about simplifying your desires. Epictetus told his students that true freedom does not come from getting everything you want, but from wanting less. He said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." When you practice this kind of simplicity, you are no longer controlled by material possessions or external approval. You stop comparing yourself to others. You stop chasing after things that cannot bring lasting fulfillment. Instead, you find contentment in what you already have and focus on living with integrity and purpose. This does not mean you give up ambition or stop pursuing meaningful goals. The Stoics were not passive people. Marcus Aurelius was an emperor responsible for leading an empire. Seneca was an advisor to one of the most powerful men in Rome. They understood responsibility and achievement. But they also understood that if you allow ambition to consume you, it will enslave you. Their solution was balance. They worked hard, but they did not tie their happiness to the outcome. They sought excellence, but they refused to let worldly success define their worth. Here is a practical exercise you can try. Look at your life and make a list of the 3 things that truly matter to you, the things that align with your values and bring you closer to the person you want to be. Then, look at how you spend your days. How much of your time and energy is actually devoted to those 3 things? You may be surprised at how much of your life is consumed by distractions. Once you see this clearly, begin the process of letting go of what does not serve your growth. The Stoics also believed in voluntary discomfort as a way of practicing simplicity and building resilience. Seneca, for example, recommended that from time to time you deliberately live with less, wear simple clothes, eat plain food, and remind yourself that you can endure discomfort. He wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, and say to yourself, 'Is this the condition I feared?'" This exercise trains the mind to stop fearing loss and teaches you that your well-being does not depend on luxury or comfort. Imagine how freeing this can be. When you no longer crave more than you need, when you are no longer enslaved by the latest trends or the constant comparison to others, you reclaim your independence. You become unshakable, because nothing external has the power to control your happiness. Think about how this habit can transform your mornings. Instead of waking up and immediately reaching for your phone, you could begin with a moment of silence, perhaps even a short meditation or reflection. Instead of filling your day with endless obligations, you could focus on what truly matters, giving your best energy to the tasks that bring you closer to your goals. And in the evening, instead of numbing yourself with entertainment or distraction, you could take time to reflect, to read something meaningful, or to simply rest with gratitude. The Stoic practice of simplicity is not about depriving yourself of joy. It is about removing the things that cloud your mind and waste your life, so you can experience true joy in its purest form. When you live simply, you see more clearly. You make better choices. You free yourself from the chaos of endless desires and rediscover the calm, grounded presence that comes from focusing on what really matters. This habit, like the others we've explored, is not something you adopt for a day or a week. It is a lifelong practice. But the rewards are profound. A simpler life is a freer life. A simpler life is a calmer life. And ultimately, a simpler life is a more meaningful life. Another cornerstone of building an unbreakable mind is mastering emotional regulation. If simplicity helps us clear the unnecessary clutter from our lives, then emotional mastery helps us stay grounded when the storms inevitably come. The Stoics understood that life will always bring pain, disappointment, and chaos. What separates those who crumble from those who endure is not the absence of hardship, but the ability to remain steady within it. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about controlling emotional impulses. He reminded himself daily that anger, fear, and frustration only hold power if we let them take root in our minds. He said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This statement captures the heart of emotional resilience. You cannot control what others do, what circumstances arise, or how the world unfolds, but you can always control your response. And that response determines whether you remain free or become enslaved by your emotions. In our modern world, this teaching is more important than ever. Every day we are bombarded with triggers, rude comments, unfair situations, terrifying headlines, and constant comparisons on social media. Without emotional regulation, these things can take over our minds, leaving us reactive, anxious, or resentful. But when you adopt a Stoic approach, you create a pause between what happens and how you respond. That pause is where your freedom lives. One of the practical exercises recommended by the Stoics is what we might call cognitive distancing. Epictetus advised his students to remind themselves that external events are neither good nor bad by nature. It is our judgment that makes them so. He said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This practice means that when something upsetting happens, instead of immediately labeling it as a disaster, you step back and look at it objectively. You ask yourself, is this really as bad as I think? Will this matter a week from now? A year from now? By creating that mental distance, you weaken the power of the event to control you. Another powerful exercise is negative visualization. This does not mean obsessing over worst-case scenarios, but instead briefly imagining the challenges or losses you might face, so that you are emotionally prepared if they happen. Seneca wrote that rehearsing misfortunes in your mind makes you stronger when they arrive because they do not catch you off guard. This practice, though uncomfortable, builds resilience. It teaches you to meet life's blows with steadiness rather than panic. Emotional regulation also involves transforming your inner dialogue. Many people spend their lives repeating unhelpful stories in their minds, that they are victims, that the world is unfair, that they are powerless. The Stoics challenge us to rewrite those narratives. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that pain and difficulty were opportunities for growth. He reframed obstacles as fuel for his virtue. Imagine what would happen if he did the same, if every challenge became a lesson, if every insult became an opportunity to practice patience, if every loss became a moment to practice acceptance. Of course, mastering emotions does not mean suppressing them. The Stoics were not robots. They felt anger, grief, and sorrow like anyone else. But they refused to be ruled by those emotions. They let themselves experience them, then responded with reason and virtue instead of letting feelings drive destructive actions. This is an important distinction. Emotional regulation is not about shutting down your heart, it is about guiding it with wisdom. In your daily life, you can practice this by becoming more aware of your emotional triggers. When you feel a strong reaction rising, pause. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself, what is within my control right now? What would a wise person do in this situation? This simple shift pulls you out of reactivity and back into intentional action. Imagine applying this habit at work when a colleague criticizes you unfairly. Instead of lashing out, you take a breath and calmly address the issue or let it go. Imagine practicing it at home when someone you love disappoints you. Instead of exploding with anger, you communicate with understanding and patience. Over time, these small acts of emotional mastery add up, transforming you into someone who cannot be easily shaken by the chaos of life. The Stoics also understood the role of perspective in managing emotions. They often used a technique called the view from above, imagining themselves looking at life as if from a great height, seeing their problems in the context of the vastness of the universe. When you do this, the things that once felt overwhelming often lose their power. The rude comment, the delayed plan, the unexpected setback, they all become small when seen in the big picture. Ultimately, emotional regulation is a practice of freedom. It frees you from being a puppet of your feelings. It allows you to choose your actions deliberately rather than being dragged around by impulses. And it gives you a calm, unshakable presence that others will notice and respect. Another crucial aspect of building an unbreakable mind, deeply emphasized by the Stoics, is the practice of aligning your actions with your core values. This may sound abstract at first, but in reality, it is one of the most practical and transformative tools for inner strength. When you live according to your deepest values, you create a kind of internal compass that guides you through every challenge, every conflict, every moment of uncertainty. It's like having a solid foundation beneath your feet while the rest of the world shifts and trembles. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to stay true to the principles of justice, wisdom, courage, and temperance. He didn't just write about these ideas for philosophical pleasure, he used them as a framework for making decisions every single day. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it, he wrote. Simple words, but when you live by them consistently, they give you unshakable strength. In today's world, it's easy to be pulled in 1,000 directions. We are influenced by social media trends, societal pressures, the expectations of family, friends, and coworkers. Many people end up living lives designed to please others instead of staying true to their own values. But this creates a deep inner conflict. When your daily actions clash with your inner beliefs, you feel disconnected, restless, and fragile. The Stoics understood this tension and taught that real peace comes only from living authentically, guided by your moral compass, no matter what the world demands of you. Imagine for a moment that you clearly define your values: honesty, kindness, resilience, or perhaps creativity in service. Now imagine making every decision with those values in mind. When faced with a difficult choice, you no longer have to wrestle with endless doubts. You simply ask, does this align with who I am and what I stand for? This practice creates clarity. It reduces anxiety. And it transforms you into someone who does not waver when external pressures mount. Epictetus once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." This statement is powerful because it reminds us that our identity is not just something we passively discover, it is something we actively create through our choices. Every day, with every action, you are either reinforcing your values or betraying them. The unbreakable mind is built by making those choices consciously, over and over again, until they become your natural way of living. One of the most effective exercises for aligning with your values is daily reflection. The Stoics often reviewed their day each evening, asking themselves whether they had acted with virtue or strayed from their principles. You can do the same. Before bed, take a few minutes to journal. Ask yourself, did I live according to my values today? Where did I fall short? What can I improve tomorrow? This habit not only keeps you accountable but also helps you grow steadily into the person you want to be. Another practice is pre-commitment. This means setting clear intentions before you enter a situation where your values might be tested. For example, if you know you will be in a stressful meeting, decide beforehand that you will remain calm and respectful, no matter how others behave. If you know you will face temptation, whether it's overindulgence, procrastination, or dishonesty, commit to staying aligned with your principles in advance. This preparation strengthens your resolve and prevents you from being swept away by the moment. Living by your values also transforms how you handle criticism or rejection. When your sense of worth comes from living authentically, external opinions lose their power over you. Someone may disagree with you, mock you, or even attack you, but if you know you are living in harmony with your principles, their judgment cannot shake you. As Seneca said, a good character, once established, cannot be dislodged. Think about how liberating this is. When you truly know who you are and what you stand for, the chaos of the world becomes background noise. You no longer need the constant approval of others to feel good about yourself. You no longer chase trends or bend to every opinion. You simply live in alignment with your core, and that is where real strength comes from. Ultimately, aligning your actions with your values turns your life into something intentional and meaningful. It makes you resilient because you are no longer at the mercy of external events or other people's expectations. You become grounded, centered, and deeply connected to your purpose. And in a world that often feels directionless, that is a rare and unbreakable gift. Another profound Stoic habit that can transform your mind into something truly unbreakable is the art of reframing challenges. The way we interpret events often determines how much power they hold over us. The Stoics were masters of this mental discipline. They believed that while we cannot control everything that happens to us, we can always control how we perceive it. This shift in perspective is not just philosophical, it is immensely practical, and it can change the way you experience your life. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This was not just a motivational phrase, it was a radical reorientation of how to view adversity. Instead of seeing obstacles as roadblocks, Marcus encouraged us to see them as opportunities for growth, wisdom, and strength. What if instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you asked, "How can this make me better?" This single question can completely transform your emotional response to life's difficulties. In our modern world, this habit is more relevant than ever. We are surrounded by stressors, constant notifications, financial pressures, complicated relationships, and global uncertainties. It is easy to feel crushed by it all. But the Stoic approach teaches us to reinterpret these pressures. Instead of framing them as pure suffering, we can choose to see them as exercises in patience, courage, or emotional resilience. Let's take a simple example. Imagine you are stuck in heavy traffic and late for an important meeting. The usual reaction is frustration, anger, or panic. But how might a Stoic respond? They would see this moment as a training ground for patience. They would remind themselves, "I cannot change this traffic, but I can choose not to let it disturb my peace." The situation becomes an opportunity to practice composure. This habit may seem small, but repeated daily, it builds extraordinary mental strength. Epictetus advised us to constantly distinguish between what is in our control and what is not. He said, "Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens." This is reframing at its core. When you recognize that much of life is outside your control, you release the burden of trying to dominate the uncontrollable. Instead, you pour your energy into your mindset and actions, the two things that are always within your reach. Here's a practical exercise. Every time you face a setback, take a moment to journal about it. Write down what happened, how you initially felt, and then reframe it. Ask yourself, what virtue is this situation inviting me to practice? What lesson is hidden here? Over time, This will train your brain to default to productive interpretations instead of destructive ones. This practice doesn't mean you suppress your emotions. The Stoics were not emotionless statues. They experienced anger, sadness, and fear, but they refused to let those emotions dictate their actions or their worth. When you reframe a situation, you are not denying the pain it causes, you are choosing to transform it into something meaningful. This also extends to how we view failure. In our culture, failure is often seen as humiliation, as proof that we are inadequate. The Stoics dismantled this idea entirely. They viewed failure as feedback, an essential part of growth. Seneca wrote, "Difficulty strengthens the mind, as labor does the body." If we can embrace our failures as teachers, instead of branding them as defeats, we build the resilience that makes us unshakable. Reframing also helps us deal with people who hurt or criticize us. Instead of taking their words as personal attacks, we can choose to see them as reflections of their own struggles. This doesn't excuse bad behavior, but it frees us from unnecessary suffering. Marcus Aurelius practiced this by reminding himself each morning that he would meet meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly people. By expecting these encounters, he reframed them in advance, so when they happened, they didn't shock him. Think of how powerful this habit could be in your own life. If you start expecting difficulties, at work, in relationships, or in daily routines, they lose their sting. They become part of the journey, not obstacles to it. Instead of resisting them with frustration, you meet them with a calm and prepared mind. Ultimately, reframing challenges is about reclaiming your power. When you change the way you interpret adversity, you change your entire experience of it. Life stops being something that happens to you and becomes something you actively shape. That shift, the Stoics taught, is where true freedom begins. And so, as we arrive at the conclusion of this journey into Stoic wisdom, it is time to bring everything together, because building an unbreakable mind is not about memorizing ancient quotes or repeating philosophical ideas. It is about living them, day by day, in the small choices, in the silent battles within yourself, and in the way you respond to the world's endless noise. The Stoics remind us that strength does not come from escaping life's hardships, but from meeting them head-on with courage, with reason, and with a deep sense of purpose. Marcus Aurelius, reflecting on his own struggles, wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." This is the heart of the Stoic path, reclaiming your agency. No one can make you feel small without your consent. No setback can truly break you unless you choose to see it as the end. In every moment, you hold the power to decide what meaning you give to your experiences. Let us imagine, for a moment, what an unbreakable mind truly looks like. It is not cold, detached, or unfeeling. It is not a wall that shuts out the world. Instead, it is like a deeply rooted tree, grounded and resilient, able to bend without breaking when the storms come. This mind does not deny pain, it transforms it into wisdom. It does not chase after fleeting pleasures, it finds satisfaction in living according to virtue. It does not fear uncertainty, it walks through it with a steady heart. And how do we begin to live this way? We start by practicing discipline, not as punishment, but as liberation, the freedom of knowing you are no longer a slave to impulses or moods. We cultivate gratitude, training our minds to focus on what is within our reach rather than what is missing. We reframe challenges, seeing in them the lessons that make us stronger. We work on ourselves quietly and persistently, knowing that true transformation is not about overnight change but about consistent effort. One of the most powerful exercises you can adopt is the Stoic evening reflection. At the end of your day, sit in silence for a few minutes and ask yourself, what did I do well today? Where did I falter? How can I face tomorrow with greater wisdom? This simple habit, practiced by philosophers like Seneca, can slowly reshape your mind and your life. And perhaps most importantly, remember that you are not alone on this path. The Stoics valued community, conversation, and shared wisdom. As Marcus Aurelius said, we are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids. When you grow, you create a ripple effect. Your strength inspires others to discover their own. So, as you step away from this video, I invite you to pause and reflect. What part of your life needs this ancient wisdom the most? Is it your relationships? Your work? Your inner battles? Choose one area and begin today. It does not matter how small the step is. What matters is that you take it. And if these ideas have spoken to you, I ask you to share your reflections in the comments. What did you take away from this? Which lesson will you start practicing? Your thoughts could inspire someone else who is listening right now, someone who needs these words as much as you once did. And of course, if you want to continue this journey with us, learning how to build resilience, inner peace, and unshakable strength, I encourage you to subscribe. Every week we explore more Stoic wisdom, practical exercises, and timeless truths to help you become the strongest version of yourself. The path to an unbreakable mind is not easy, but it is worth it. And every day you walk it, you are proving to yourself and to the world that you are capable of far more than you think.